I was slapped with a stop work order for planting a lawn. I was immediately served with a court appearance, another felony charge of violating a stop work order. The building inspector was absolutely antagonizing, sarcastic, nasty, and wielding power. They're using the environment to steal our freedom, and they're doing it aggressively. And we're having fun with us.
He fought for years to try to get a sign that he eventually just caved, like, fine, this isn't going to happen. So when I bought the business in 2016, I was just like, maybe it wasn't them. So I went, McKay, I want to put a sign up. And I barely even got the words out of my mouth. Nope, can't do it. There's too many signs.
I don't think anyone in my adult life has ever spoken to me the way I was spoken to this particular meeting.
And the message that sends is go to Florida, leave the state, go to a different state, not specifically Florida, but maybe Florida, I don't know. Welcome back to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hurlock, co-owner of AA Shop Marketing. And here today on the Garage Grit Podcast, we've got a great panel in front of us. I know I say that all the time, but this is a very interesting conversation, and it's a little bit, well, let's say it this way. Before I jump in, let's take a moment to kind of urge everyone listening to this podcast to go vote. I know this is referred to as an off year, but it's not. That doesn't even make sense to me. It's not a national election every year, and that doesn't matter. Your local elections, in fact, often have a bigger impact on your day-to-day business operations than anything happening in Washington, D.C. And so city councils, zoning boards, local tax assessors, these are all people making decisions and rules that are going to affect whether or not you expand your shop, whether or not you add signage, or as we're going to hear, whether or not you just maintain your current property and operate the way that you want to operate. So before you head to the polls, here's what I'm going to recommend. Take 10 to 15 minutes to get informed. Go out, find a copy of your local ballot. All right. And then do research on the name of the person running and the position that they're running for. And in 2 to 3 minutes per person, you're going to be able to find all that you need to know whether or not they're common sense people. You don't need to put out yard signs if you don't want to. You don't need to put money into a campaign if you don't want to, but be educated and be informed and vote for common sense people that are going to be pro small business instead of anti small business. Right. And so, anyway, so that's my suggestion is do that quick Google search, do that research. I think it's going to make a difference to, maybe it doesn't matter to you today in 2025, but I bet you it's going to matter down the road when you try to expand or do something different, or even just, do some maintenance on your property or your shop. Know who's in office. It's not just an after the fact thing. Make the decisions that start impacting you now. All right. With that said, let me talk to you about the 3 shop owners that are joining us today for some real world stories about the challenges that they've faced in the past or currently with their local municipalities. And so let's dive in. Tom, why don't you start off and give us your name, your shop, and some information, just a little bit of background on you.
Tom Palermo, owner, Preferred Automotive Specialist, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've been in this location for about 8 years now. My father started the business back in the late 70s, early 80s. So I've been doing this pretty much my whole life. So great business, great people, interesting topic. Definitely a third rail kind of topic. So
yeah, it is. And what's interesting about that to me is that it shouldn't be. Common sense should be like, just there it is. Like what makes common sense? Let's protect people. That's fine. But let's also just have some common sense about things. Corey, how about if you give us your backstory and tell us about your shop?
Yeah. So, Corey Rozema, Rozema's Car Care, second generation owner. My wife and I took it over 2016, did an addition. And pretty much like kind of doubled the footprint of the main building. They broke ground due to the delays on the date it was supposed to have been completed on. So,
okay.
From the time we actually started to the time we ended, it probably took almost 2 years.
Interesting.
The actual construction part took about 90 days.
I love that. All right, so we're gonna ask more questions on that. Greg, real quick, why don't you introduce you and your shop as well?
Metric Motors is the name of the garage. We've been here for 45 years. We are attempting to enlarge our facility, modernize things. Parking doesn't work, the building doesn't work, and we're met with great difficulty with the community.
Okay. Interesting. And you're in New York, and Corey, you're in Michigan, and Tom is still working on his mic, but it'll be back working soon, I'm sure. And he's in the Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area.
Can you hear me?
We can.
There you go. Okay.
All right. So Tom,
I had unplugging my headset and replugging it.
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries. So, all right. So Greg, why don't you tell us, you're actually going to need to jump out of the podcast a little early because of a court hearing that just popped up. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on there right now?
So 3 years ago, I had started to enlarge the lawn surrounding my property, and in doing that, I buried rocks and just groomed the property. No elevation was changed, no material was brought in, no material left. Just buried rocks.
Just beautification of the property, make it more attractive for people to come in.
I have and the zoning in this particular piece of land is IOC, I industrial, O office, C commercial. And I've been here since 1958, by the way. And the shop has been here since 1979, 78, 79. We've been here 45 years. We've outgrown it and very interested in expanding it and making it something of more significance than it is.
You've got plenty of space from what I hear.
We've got a lot of land here, and the IOC land is like 18 acres. So we want to make it more valuable. It's right off an exit ramp on Interstate 84, and there's no one else around me, so that no one else should potentially complain. So I was slapped with a stop work order for planting a lawn 3 years ago. I went to the planning board to clear up the stop work order, and I was met with insanity. They wanted me to excavate everything that I had touched, digging for potential problems. In other words, problems being that, and what they were saying, did I cover wetlands? And yet there were no wetlands on any of the Army Corps of Engineer maps. They were really looking for something more severe than that, knowing that I had been in business for 45 years. They were looking for a drop of oil, a drop of antifreeze, or something below the surface so they could hang me. Okay? That's what they were looking to do, is business-threatening excavation around my entire building without any cause. I didn't fill in anything. I removed nothing. So when that happened, I hired an attorney, and I asked for some sort of I asked the courts to delay the court date until there was potentially some political change in structure. But that's not going to happen. So in the period, in that 3 years later now, we're up to today, we just recently removed 2 dead trees in one of the fields that I had planted. Towering trees, dangerous. Widowmakers, they have branches that were falling on the ground that routinely kill people. I removed just these 2 trees, planted grass, and disturbed nothing. I was immediately served with a court appearance, another felony charge of violating a stop work order. The building inspector was, his demeanor was absolutely antagonizing, sarcastic, nasty, and wielding his power. And today I have to go to make an appearance. And I'm not really sure of how it's going to be received, who's going to be there, the town attorney, the town wetlands inspector, this building inspector who is my favorite person. So I have no clue what's going to happen. But that's all that I did is, and I keep thinking to myself, what he should have done would be to say, hey, Greg, yeah, go ahead, take down those 2 dangerous trees, but please don't go any further than that until, your summonses have been cleaned up with the planning board. He didn't do that. He just came and aggressively served me with another felony charge. Believe it or not, it's a criminal charge that I'm up against. So,
for cutting down a dead tree. For cutting down a dead tree
Exactly.
that was likely to land on somebody.
Child, dog, they play Frisbee in this field. So, gentlemen, we are losing our freedom. We have lost our freedom. And that's what it really boils down to. And they're using the environment to steal our freedom. They're hanging, the environment, the tree huggers' beliefs and taking our freedoms away, and they're doing it aggressively, and they're having fun with us. So
do you think that every business across the state is getting this kind of aggressive treatment, or do you think that they have a bug for you?
I think I really can't read their minds. I don't know. I really don't. I mean, I run a really clean business. You can't find a cigarette butt in my parking lot. I don't know why they would be so aggressive towards me, being that I've been here so long and so far out of the way. No one's looking to buy my property. No one's looking to force me out. I'm just here. I think I have no clue of human nature. I'm not a jealous person. I don't envy anybody, nothing. I just want to go to work and go home and have a dinner with my family. I'm not politically motivated. I don't think like other people do, so I have no clue how to answer your question.
And forgive me, I'm being suspicious because I know nothing about the situation. But I mean, you said you're right off an exit. That sounds like one of those outlet malls that are just hoping to go in there.
No, I don't believe that that's the case. No one is knocking at my door asking me to sell. No one from any chain or corporate America knocking at my door.
Okay. Interesting. So I wonder if there's coalitions or groups of repair shops that could advocate with you or for you in New York.
I don't know whether or not, I mean, guys like myself and I'm assuming others, we get up in the morning and we hit the ground running and try to get a day's work done. And it's really hard to be sidetracked with any political issues and doing anything. I don't know. I don't have any time on the table. So I don't, so I've interviewed, I know what it's going to cost to litigate this. It's going to cost me $500,000. The attorneys in my area get paid $10 a minute, $10 to $15 a minute, and travel time, court time, and plus. It's going to cost $500,000 to protect my simple rights of don't bother me. Let me operate my business. Just let me be. Please just let me be. It's going to cost me $500,000. Believe it or not.
Amazing.
Just to say that, please, I get off my back. It's going to cost $500,000.
And what were your plans for? And do they actually know your plans that you were hoping to build an additional building out back?
So I presented the plans to the town supervisor, and I said, "Hey, look, this is what I plan to do." And she said, without even looking at them, she put her hand on the drawings that were very elaborate. I like to build things, and that's another story. And she says, "I'm for this. I'm for it." And I said, "But you're for this, but the people that you have put in place in the planning board have a unbelievably bad reputation, and they've been there for 10, 15 years. So you're for it, and yet your actions are destructive." And she said nothing. So I went and I proceeded to go to the planning board, and I was shredded. They actually had imagined things. They were so crazy. They had an imagination problem about what I had done.
Can you give me an example?
So that millings are ground up blacktop. They said that I had millings on my front lawn that I had just planted, and they were so sure of it, they had pictures of it. And I reminded him, I says, "No, that's my front lawn." And he says, "No, those are millings there. I'm so sure of it. I'll show you pictures." And then the town engineer proceeded to walk to his chair and throw his cell phone and plop himself down in a mild fit of rage. He imagined there was millings on my front lawn and he was so sure of it, he had photographs of it.
But he didn't have photographs of it.
I don't know what he had photographs, but he couldn't have because they weren't there. I don't know what he had photographs of, but the guy's insane. And I'm being met with this type of
And what do you think their motivation is?
Power. It's a Ponzi scheme. So when they work people over like me, they beat me up. I had to put several $1,000s in escrow. They beat the hell out of you, right? And then they bleed you. They take your money. that you pay for your own punishment. And then the planning board sits there like, yeah, great, rail this guy, rail him. It's like I imagine it like the Roman Colosseum, right? The wetlands inspector and the town engineer are the two gladiators that are killing the Christians, and then the audience is the planning board members, and they're like, they have their thumbs up or thumbs down, kill this guy, and they use the wetlands inspector and the town engineer as tools to destroy everybody's rights. And then the planning board is isolated. They're like, this is the rules of the road. And, it's not us saying that you can't build. It's not us that's requesting for excavation. It's not us for, claiming that you've buried a wetlands or anything. It's those guys. And we have to listen to them. So it is a Ponzi scheme, nothing short of it. They take away your rights and they get paid for it.
Are any of those officials up for re-election this coming fall?
Yeah, they are, but and she's going to win. She's going to get back in the building. The supervisor's a shoo-in, and she's not a good person. She's not just another individual that does nothing and gets paid for it.
So you say she's a shoo-in. Like, is there no campaign that could be ran to expose the nonsense?
It's kind of late in the game. I wonder that. I mean, the next 2 weeks. And then
the next 2 weeks are when people might be paying attention. They probably weren't paying attention 6 months ago.
And then, that takes political involvement.
It would have difficulty to ramp it up this fast. There's no doubt. But this is when people...
I know, but I have no clue or no desire to be involved in anything that they do. I believe that they're very bad, destructive individuals. I think they're evil. I'm not equipped. The only thing that I know is to hire a very expensive attorney and sue them. And that's business threatening as well. So what does one do? To become political force means that you need to gather a lot of group-minded people together and then have a movement. To do it on my own, the average individuals like us, they're running hard all day long and they don't have, the time to sit back and understand and see the value of someone else. It would have to be affecting everybody, not just me.
Listen, as auto repair shop owners, if you're listening to this, you're also from New York and you know of an advocacy group that reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with Greg so that you can actually see if we can help him out. But I did a quick Google search while you were chatting, Greg, and I found a couple different associations, but I don't know if they do for New York, but I don't know if they do advocacy. And I did find an ACA, an auto care association that's national auto care advocacy, but they're national and not specific to New York. So I don't know what they'd be able to help you with either. I'm curious. Corey, Tom, what are your thoughts? Do you have anything to say to Greg? I know that he's got to head out to a court date soon.
Yeah, I like to run. I'm still trying to digest it myself. That's a story.
Doesn't seem
I don't understand how cutting down a couple trees that are going to hurt people could be a criminal felony.
Yeah. Wow. I really, wow. That's Greg, I feel for you, and I'll definitely be praying for you, man. That's tough. That's really tough. Has it always been like that there, or is that is?
Yeah.
You said you've been there for a while. Have you always been?
It has always been this way. Just I've never been put on under their pressure, but I'm sure it's been this way for the longest time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been this way. This is the culture of the community, and they like it that way. And again, the planning board basically is not trained on anything. They just recruit these two devils,
right?
And they shred anybody that comes up in front of them, and it deflects the responsibility. They're not the bad guys. These appointed wetland inspector and engineer, they're the devils, and they take all the heat.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I'm going to go up in front of the judge, and I don't know what to say. What am I to say? I did the right thing. I don't want anybody getting hurt. You know, I didn't estimate the property and defy anybody. I took down 2 dead lethal trees. Why am I here?
And this is criminal court,
Yeah.
Felony.
or it's a felony, so it's criminal court, right?
Yeah. In other words, yeah, they're going to dig me $500 a day. And if I don't fix it, what am I going to fix? I don't know. Then there's yeah. And I didn't know that until an attorney told me that this is a felony charge. I had no clue.
Wow.
Okay. Well, Greg, I want to hopefully stay in touch with you, that you'll be able to keep us posted as far as, what's going on,
Okay.
and how that's progressing. I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know where to go. I imagine your stress level's through the roof, and my empathy is out there for you on that. You don't even sound like somebody who hasn't paid attention, right? You actually have been paying attention. It's just that you're outnumbered as far as who people are voting for. But the challenge a lot of times with these local elections, and the reason people usually just win year after year, is that they don't actually have any real numbers voting for them or voting against them, right? The people just aren't, they just sit at home. It's an off year, right? And so, I don't know. I guess that maybe there's where the challenge is. You just get on social media and try to spread the news that everyone needs to go out and vote for someone with common sense. Who is the other candidate that she's running against, or is there nobody?
There is another person that she's running against that I think is further in the woods than even she is. I think that
so you don't even, right.
There's no way out in this situation.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll let
So
you know.
maybe the way out is with an advocacy group that can actually help or assist with the process.
It has to be.
How many years ago did you introduce to them that you were hoping to expand?
3.
3. Okay. All right. And the trees were cut down last year?
The trees were cut down like within the month.
Oh, very recently.
Yeah, very recent. Yeah. So 3 years ago, I was stop order. Only a couple of weeks ago did I remove the decaying trees.
Okay. All right. I know that you said you have to get going soon. Is your time up?
I need to run. Yes, gentlemen. Thank you. I'd be interested.
Thank you for being able to share your story. I appreciate you for coming on. We're rooting for you. If there's something that we can do or say or post, you let us know. Okay, Greg?
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Wow.
Right? I don't even know where to begin. So yeah, I don't even know where to begin. Wow is correct, Tom. That was, I wasn't actually expecting that crazy of a story. And I guess it's because when I actually scheduled Greg to come on, it actually hadn't happened yet. Right? He said he cut it down within the last month. He was the first one that was invited to this group. And it was because he was on a panel a few months back, and he made a comment about it, and I was like, what's going on here? Right? And so it got my attention. But then he was just talking about the building expansion and the challenges that he was having with that. So wish him the best. And so Corey, you have an interesting multi-year story as well, right? I mean, you're just like Tom, you're second generation. The building's been there, and you made a comment to me off camera about how many years did it take for you to put up a sign?
30 years.
30.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. 30 years. All right. So tell us about the sign specifically.
Oh.
Tom's over here sitting
I
had to move from one county to the next. I've got nothing.
My story is nowhere near as bad as these guys. But sorry, Corey.
My dad built that building when I was 16 years old. I'm 46 now. And he wanted to put a sign up, on the road. And, they said, no, you can't. There's too many signs. Because it's kind of near an intersection, but, it's like 1.5 lots away from you. And they were like, no, there's too many signs up. And I remember this because I remember him dragging me along to the planning commission boards. And they're like, no, there's too many signs.
How many signs? Did you ever go out and count? I would have went out and counted.
I mean, now, including mine, there's 4.
Okay.
So,
All right.
like, it is what it is. But then, yeah, we did. So my wife and I took over in 2016. He fought for years and years and years to try to get a sign. Then he eventually just caved, like, fine, this isn't going to happen. So then when my wife and I bought the business in 2016, I was just like, wow, maybe it wasn't them. My dad is old school, maybe he's a little bit more difficult guy to deal with, but, never know. So I went, like, hey, I want to put a sign up. And like, I barely even got the words out of my mouth. Nope, can't do it. There's too many signs there.
Unreal.
And just like, I mean, I didn't even know where I'm at. You don't know where they're located. They just dismissed it immediately. I just said, hey, I'm Corey. I'm from Rozema's Car Care, but like, hey, I just bought the business from my dad. So maybe they kind of had a general idea, but I mean, at that point it had been 20 years. And, there's multiple turnover since then, but they were just like, nope, can't do it. I'm like, okay. So I guess it wasn't my dad. That's good to know. So we did went to the addition. All of that was what it was. It was a little bit of a challenge, but we got all the way through that. And then I finally teamed up with the company behind us because they wanted to put a sign up, and they said, no, you can't put a sign up there either. So it's, good or bad, I knew it wasn't only me. And we just regularly went in there day after day after day after day until all of a sudden one day there was somebody different. And Ray, the guy that owns the business behind me, went there, and they're like, yeah, I went and I talked to the new guy, and they still told me no. And I went in there afterwards, not quite sure what I was going to do, but I'm just like, I'm going to go in there and be the exact opposite of how I normally would be. Like, I'm going to treat them like they're the greatest, smartest, most intelligent people on the planet. And I went in, rather than saying, hey, this is what I wanted to do, it was, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Like, what do you guys think it would take to make something like this happen? And immediately, like, the entire tone changed. So it was like I was still asking the same question, just using different words.
Yeah.
And like, the joke now is like I treated them kind of like, I try to treat them like the cool kid in high school. Like, oh man, I'm in awe of everything you guys do.
Right.
And yeah, within probably 2 months, we have a sign up.
Does it also have Ray's business name?
I'm sorry?
You said Ray was the guy that also had a business behind you?
Yeah. So he has a indoor volleyball training center.
But is his sign underneath yours or next to yours?
Right. Yeah. His is on top. Mine's on the bottom. We built one big sign together.
Got it.
And yeah, they wouldn't let us light it. Which, whatever. So we just use like really reflective paint. So it's almost probably better than a lit sign because it only draws your attention if it's lit, if like a headlight or something is shining on it.
Right.
So I think it's almost probably better.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it wasn't quite 30 years. It was probably, because we've had it now for probably about a year. So 29 years.
That's amazing.
It took to get the street sign.
That's amazing. But I kind of like the way you framed it. I think, forgive me if I'm going to upset somebody who's listening to this who's a local politician, but it comes across, a lot of times they come across as power hungry, I'm in charge, I know better. And yeah, so if you actually kind of stroke that ego a little bit, then potentially you can help yourself out. And
which is very outside my personality. I mean, I'm very much, like my father in that end, where it's like, I'm pretty sure I'm right. I'm pretty sure you're wrong, regardless of before any conversation has even been had. And
you use the old bees and honey thing. You get more bees with honey. Yeah. Right.
Yep. Exactly.
Listen, I mean, after hearing Greg, I'm still thinking about Greg's story, and now I'm hearing your story about 30 years for a sign, and it's boggling my mind. But I'm shocked to hear some of this stuff in some ways, and in some ways I'm not, and to Brad's point, this is something that I think affects everybody. And it's something that people need to remember, especially coming around this time of the year. This is you don't know what you don't know. And if nobody's ever tried to do what Corey did or what, Greg did, or what I tried to do many years ago, they don't have any experience with, with this section of government that people don't, that you need in order to be able to achieve your goals. So, and I think it's easy. I think what happens is either you give up or you soldier on, like Corey did 30 years to get a sign. It's impressive. That's impressive. Good for you for not giving up, Corey.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's, like Brad, you had mentioned about, common sense rules and all of that, but like, I don't think common sense is a thing anymore. But sometimes just, if you are voting for something or for somebody, if somebody's been in there, especially local government, I mean, that shouldn't be a career.
Right.
I mean,
well, none of it should be a career. That was never actually 4
or 5 years, maybe.
Right. Now, I admit I'm a little bit of a geek because I've got this on my desk, but and it's not it's one of 2 books on my desk, but the rest of the books I guess are behind me. But it was never designed. Our entire way of government was never designed to be a career type thing. It was us that were supposed to get involved for 4 or 6 years, and then, as you just said, Corey, then you pass the baton to somebody else. You pass the baton. So. And maybe that's the challenge, is that there's not enough common sense people that have stood up and said, okay, I'm going to run this stint. There are plenty of organizations that do this really, really well. And I don't know why people in government don't, or maybe they do, and they keep passing the power from passing it around. I don't know, but think of like your local Rotary. How you already know who the next president of your chapter is going to be. And they are basically the president in training for how long? And so that way there's no like overnight kind of crazy changes, right? It's that baton passing. So like, I don't know, if somebody was to get involved before your 3 or 4 or 6 years are up, make sure that you have found an understudy to take up the baton. Like, how hard is that? Like, that doesn't seem to be too crazy. Every single one of us knows 10 or 15 or 100 different people that have common sense minded values, but just none of them are in government. It attracts what it attracts, right? Maybe that's the common sense. We're like, ooh, that sounds awful. I don't want to do that. But that's probably what it is, isn't it? It's I don't want to be, I don't need to be, whatever. I don't know. I was about to say Kavanaugh, talking about all that he went through. Now that's a high, super profile. You're not going to get that at the local level. I wouldn't think. So anyway.
Well, I definitely think it's like a thankless job. So even if you do good things and you do things correctly, no one's there to say, oh, hey, thank you so much. But it's you one thing somebody disagrees with, and they will blast you for weeks on whatever the local social media is at the time.
So yeah, and Corey, to your point, the flip side of that is how many people walked into the office trying to do something that was completely ridiculous. How many people are going in there and they have to be told no for whatever reason, for a legitimate reason, and it just becomes this hardening, I guess, and people. If people have to be put in that position, and I'm not making excuses for anybody, don't get me wrong, but if they're in that position for long enough and they have to, they have to say no, and then they're met with the resistance from the person trying to do it, I can imagine that it would create a situation where, it just, it's always no. The answer's always no. To your point, then that's, I think, what you were dealing with there, Corey. That's what it sounds like you're dealing with there. I'm not even going to, it's going to be the same, what's the definition of insanity, right? So it's the, it just becomes that, and then it becomes adversarial and nobody wins, in the end, nobody wins. And it's a tough situation, but, Brad, you're right though. Some common sense everywhere would go a long way for on both. And I think really, and not to belittle what Corey or I or Greg is going through, but a little common sense on both sides would probably go a long way. And sometimes, the proof is in the pudding, if you will. If things are going to work, things are going to work. These things should be very well laid out, like you said, Brad, and people should be able to go to get to do something if they want to expand or if they want to put up a sign or something like that, and have the confidence to say, here's what it says, here's what I want to do. It fits in the parameters that are set. Let's go. So
you make a really good point. I mean, you should be able to anonymously go and collect all of the documentation that you need and to determine whether or not you can put up the sign, how big the sign's allowed to be, and those types of things prior to you even going and asking potentially. But Corey, you made a really interesting point about how they're told, they're so used to being, they have to tell no so many times because people, or I think it was Tom to talk about something like ridiculous, like a wastewater treatment plant or a nuclear plant on their own property, right? So no, you can't have that. They get beat up. They probably do get beat up a lot. They don't have a system in place the way shop owners do to collect the good reviews. They only have the annoying, loud reviews. Like that's something. It's almost as if that's what they need before they get elected. How many? They're 4 out of 5 stars. And well, then maybe I will vote for them, right? But that doesn't exist.
Well, I think that, I think even if you want to equate that to our industry too, there's a lot of shops that don't do follow-up phone calls. And when you get, 99% of the positive feedback is going to be positive, and you ask, hey, will you leave me a review on Google or leave me a review on whatever you're utilizing? To do that on a political side, if you're talking a township planning commission, I would think that would be the easiest thing in the world because you're in front of your neighbors. If you like what I'm doing, rather than only point out the negative, let's point out a couple of the positive things. Like
you could use Facebook,
whatever. We built the splash pad. And I'm sure there'll be people that were anti-splash pad, or we put in whatever for the high school kids. And, it's still going to be a majority of positive. It's just that people don't, the positive doesn't get the attention.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Unless you actually ask for it, it doesn't get the attention. So that's an interesting idea that, all these characters have their own Facebook profile for their political office that they're running, right? A lot of them do anyway. Why not ask for reviews on it? Why not ask for comments on my feed? And then on your yard sign, it says, go to my Facebook page to see what your neighbors are saying about me. Because that's actually the issue, right? Is that we've relied on these large platforms for all of these things. And so we don't really have a voice in the positive or the negative for these local officials because they just kind of get overlooked. But maybe Facebook's the right spot. I don't think TikTok has a geographic footprint limited, so you're going to be exposed to everybody across the globe, and that doesn't actually help you. So maybe Facebook's the way to go with it. I don't know. But I don't know. I'm thinking about Tom. I also am still overwhelmed with Greg's story. It just keeps jumping back in my mind, and
I'm actually sitting here thinking I'm going to email him after this, and that was an incredible story. That was an incredible story.
Is there something that we should do?
Imagine.
Should we do something? Should we try to create a I don't know what his. What's that?
A GoFundMe. If this is legitimately going to cost him $500,000,
yeah,
it doesn't sound to me like he was doing anything other than trying to improve the community.
He wasn't even doing that. He was trying to make sure that the community didn't die on his property.
Right.
Yes. Right. Now the grass was beautification.
I'm sure his insurance company,
where the felony charge specifically is. He was just trying to make sure that nobody died while walking on his property.
Right.
That's did he say he was represented, Brett? Was he?
Yeah, he's got a lawyer. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
And he was saying that it's going to cost him that $500K to go through this process.
Well, for today's event.
Oh, I assumed that he was meeting. I did not ask that specifically
because that's a whole that's a serious situation. That's that's a dire situation if it goes the wrong way for him and his family. That's absolutely horrible. I'm still shocked. So
right. Yeah. Like the criminal aspect of that is just mind blowing. Like a criminal felony for cutting down some trees.
I don't know. I want to hear, and we didn't have enough time to ask as many questions as we would have liked, but I want to hear more. I really do. So we're going to have to figure that out. And get more. And I like the idea of a GoFundMe or a Give, Send, Go or whichever. Like we'll have to look into to that option and whether or not they would receive it. But I'll have to look into that. So, but it sounds like you guys would help me spread the word if it comes to that.
Yeah.
So, all right, that sounds good. All right. Yeah. So, it's going to dominate the conversation. We're going to keep coming back to it, but trying to, the people that are listening to this, they're not in areas where they're going to be charged with a felony for cutting down a tree. They're often just trying to expand a bay or, add an extra bay. I was talking to a shop owner in Florida and was being told that they wanted to do a couple outdoor bays. Like that was, easy enough, just do some outdoor bays. They had their land for it. It wasn't going to impede on anyone else's property. It wasn't like it was violating, but they got shut down on it. They were not allowed to do it. So they ended up actually building a pole barn type structure. And at the very, very end, after everything has already been passed, or just kind of, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, the fire chief came in and did a radio frequency test or to determine whether or not they could get radio frequency from inside the barn to the street. And it failed. And my first thought was, had they let it be an open air, it would not have failed. Oh, they got around that. But it's so interesting, the hurdles or the headaches that you have to and that's a lot of honey to be applied. And to back to Corey's point or story, right? It's like how many different people are being involved that you have to apply all of that honey. And so and Tom, you haven't told your story yet. You were in Philly. Your dad had the shop in Philly. You moved outside of Philly. And, in Philly, you've got the city wage tax. You've got other taxes and whatnot. And then Montgomery County wasn't your friend. Do I have that right? Why don't you, Corey shared a little bit about him. Greg, you haven't taken a turn. Tom, tell us.
No, all right. Yeah, sure. No problem. So, we back in it was around 2000, we moved to a shop, just like most small business, small independent repair shops started off in the service station area, and then moved to a location that was just service. And that was when we did our move in 2000. So landed 99, 2000. So we were there for a while. We outgrew it quickly. We made do. And we were in an interesting place. We were in a place that was on a main road, which they widened while we were there and took some parking lot away. Total another conversation, I guess. But it didn't really hurt us. It wasn't that bad. But the nice part was they actually put a curb in, and it actually worked out. It
looked nice, but I mean, you lost a couple of parking spots.
We lost
at the very least.
We lost some depth in the front of the lot. We didn't lose. It wasn't that much, but they did make it look nice, and it kept people from cutting through the parking lot and stuff. So that was great. But fun.
Okay,
no problem. But we shop owners are always looking for the most space they could possibly find. So we may do. We had behind us. We had a neighborhood, and we were a busy shop. We had a lot of cars there that we were working on, and there was a lot of commotion. We were all the way down the end of the block, so we kept it contained to our little, part of the block.
Okay.
Never left anything out, after we closed, moved everything back on the lot at night. We actually, we tried to help the neighbors out as much as we could. If they had little problems or whatever, we would take care of it. When it would snow really badly, we would actually plow out their driveways for them. Because they all had some really long driveways. So we were applying the honey that Corey was talking about earlier.
Right.
And it was the right thing to do. I mean, besides the fact, that it made good business sense, it was the right thing to do. These are your neighbors. we're a noisy auto repair shop, for the better part of 10 hours a day. Let's try to help the people that we're dealing with. So there was a property that was across the street from us across that side street. The gentleman there had a supply business. His father had started that. He was looking to retire, wanted to sell it. We wanted to buy it. It was a pretty good sized piece of property, and with the intention of, putting up a building and, doing what we had to do. And we were leasing the place that we were in, at the time.
Okay.
So these are, if you can imagine, there's a main street, and then there was a block that cut in, and we were right on the corner of that side street, and the main street, and across from us on the side street was this property.
Okay.
Talked to him. He wanted to sell. We worked out a deal. We had a number in mind. We were good. We started approaching the appropriate people from the county. They wanted to have a meeting with the neighbors. We were okay with that. We felt we had a good relationship with the neighbors. We had a meeting, and I have to be honest with you, I don't think anyone in my adult life has ever spoken to me the way I was spoken to at this particular meeting.
Wow.
They were upset about traffic. They were afraid that if we bought this piece of property and developed it, that there would be traffic and more traffic. And just to be clear, this piece of property basically had a small house on it, and then there was probably about the better part of an acre where that was pretty much just open. It needed work. It needed to be remediated. There was work that had to be done. And our plan was to make it beautiful. Landscaping, drainage, right. The whole, if we were going to do it,
right.
We were going to do it 100%.
But the building that was going to go there was going to be considerably larger than the one.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Sure. Mm-hmm. So we had this meeting. They were, most of the people that were there were less than receptive. I'll keep it clean, keep it PG rated. When they, so that was an issue. We were kind of shocked, to be honest with you, because, and you have to understand that, your topic here is politics. Those politics aren't just the people that are, making decisions like, yes, you can have, to correspond to sign or this, or, put it back. You also have to deal with the people that are around you. There's a certain politics, if you will, to your neighbors, and we felt that we had done a good job of trying to, make them understand that, we wanted to make it better. We wanted to improve this property. They didn't really want to hear that.
Well, so we're lumping them all in, right? And how often do we get a notice from the local municipality saying, hey, we're having a hearing on this topic, and you don't go because it's not a topic that you care about. It's not a topic that you're upset about. And so you're talking about plowing those neighbors' driveways. I'm just curious, do you know whether or not any of the specific plowed driveways were there? So let's say you plowed the two nearest driveways. Were they the ones that were at this meeting, or they?
Oh yeah, there were people. Actually, it's interesting. No, they were there. Oh, there was, because what we did was they said, hey, listen, let's get together and let's have a meeting after the end of the day. It was an informal meeting. This wasn't a go to the township, courthouse.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I should have made that clear. This was an informal meeting, and it was myself, my father, few of the two managers. It was everybody. The people that were closer to us were supporters. The further out you got from the worse it got. But here's the interesting part, and this just goes to show you that sometimes you can do everything right and it still goes wrong. Wow, the problem was one of the big concerns was traffic. And now we had told our people, when you do a road test, do not go through the neighborhood, go out onto the main street. We had a whole route set up. Right. We did not want them back in the neighborhood because there's kids back there, and I don't want traffic. So we did what without even being asked, we did it. The problem is about 100 yards maybe up the road from that intersection of that side street and we're in our shop was a traffic light. Well, what would happen is traffic would start to back up and then people would start cutting through the neighborhood. So while we were standing there having the meeting, there's cars coming up the street, And to the gentleman who was from the county, to his credit, he said, "Hey, listen, it was 7:00 at night when we did this." He said, "Hey, listen, we've been standing here for 20 minutes and I've counted 30 cars that have gone through here. They're closed." So you know what I mean? Like and it just, but they weren't having it. So we abandoned that idea. There were some other statements that were made during that meeting that I unfortunately can't repeat unless you have a beep button.
Well, this is when we post this, we actually mark that it is not made for kids. So you're welcome to share what you want to share.
Right. It's all right. So what happened was, and here's the ironic part. The ironic part is, and that's an example of someone who was from the county, who was willing to say, "Hey, look, we're standing out here at 7:00 at night. They've been closed for an hour and a half. 30 cars just went by while we were standing here. The problem isn't them. It's there's a traffic flow issue or whatever." So what happens? Well, the property gets sold because he wanted to retire. The property across the street, he wanted to retire. So he sells it to what it's zoned as, which was basically a building supply kind of, I don't remember the exact zoning name, but basically it was roofing supplies was what he was selling. So somebody else moves in. Well, guess what? He was a lot busier than the gentleman who wanted to sell it to us. So what happened there? The whole property got filled up with supplies. There's storage trailers and trucks coming in at all hours of the day and night. And then we, in our need to expand or need to find a bigger place, we looked at a few other places in the same county. We were met with similar resistance. And we just gave up on, we didn't originally, we wanted to stay in the county that we were in because we really appreciated, the county.
Now with that, by staying in that county, the resistance that you met at the other locations, at the other, we've already passed the one across the street. The one across the street was neighborhood resistance, not government resistance.
We had the problems that we had at the other there was one in particular that we looked at that we went, and this is, nobody ever said anything to us, but I wasn't born yesterday. So we're looking at a place. It was a good sized place, nice parking lot, whatever. One day we're going back and forth. We keep going through the building. It was going to be a big decision for us. This was going to be a big deal. So we're back and forth a few times. We became friendly with the gentleman who owned it. All of a sudden we go back one day and there's no parking signs everywhere, like all around it. So people used to be able to park on the streets, but somebody got wind that we were looking at this place and they knew we were busy, is what I assume. I have no proof of this. And all of a sudden there's no parking signs everywhere, side streets, all over the place. It's amazing. So once we saw that, we're like, okay, I don't know what's going on here, but we're going to have to go in another direction. I do want to mention that back to the previous property, the building that we were in, that we were leasing when we left, was vacant for 4 years. So,
right.
You know
back
what
to the
happened
whole common
there.
sense thing, right? Like
So-
you need to like you got to be careful what you're fighting for or against, because you're going to create more problems than.
And so that building was basically, it was an older building. We always maintained it, but after 4 years of nobody being in there, it wasn't looking great. You had the guy across the street, and the ironic part was pretty much, because we stayed friendly with some of the people when we moved to our current location, which I have to say, full disclosure, was the best move we ever made. Totally happy. Everybody's great. We never, thankfully, knock on wood, we don't have any of these kinds of problems here. We are blessed. And I
find that really interesting, because you're now in the city of Philadelphia.
And we have,
so you're talking about a rural or suburban county, right? And they had more issues with you, and not just the officials, but also the people that were around had more issues with you being there than you currently have with your current spot.
Yeah, so. and I if I could just finish my thought here, we
Please.
we do everything by the book. as I'm sure Corey does, and I'm sure Greg does, we don't, our goal is not to try to game anything. We're trying, we follow the rules, and we did there, and we do here. And the only time we ever had an issue anywhere was when we were in our other location and we tried to move around. I think what it was there was just so much pressure from, the public, that it wasn't going to work. And, listen, like I said, like the thing with the no parking at that other location now, because we said, because when we saw it, we said, how long is that, would they talk with them? No, we've been able to park there for 20 years. So,
right.
Do I have any proof?
Right.
No. Am I, was I born yesterday? No.
Right. Did you have any conversations with the people in the government in that particular location?
Not after that. No. Once
before that, though, you had.
Yeah.
You let them know that you were thinking about coming in, and
sure. Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, we just didn't. Yeah, because we wanted, like we were saying before, we wanted to try to make this as painless as possible. So we wanted to know what was allowed, what wasn't allowed, what were we looking at, what would it take, and there were other properties that we had looked at as well. They just weren't really a good fit for our business model, and the locations weren't 100% nice buildings, but the locations just didn't work. And to be honest with you, the place we're in now, Brad, I couldn't tell. I can tell you, I couldn't be happier. I have more licenses than I did when I was in Montgomery County, obviously. But we do what we're supposed to do. We, it's not the worst thing in the world. We just, it's cost of doing business. We do it. We make it work.
Right.
And we don't, we're good. I listened to Greg's story and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, 3 years. I can't imagine.
I've got it good. I've been blessed. I got it good. So no, but with the part that I find interesting is the cost of doing business at your new location is significantly higher. I mean, you've got city wage tax, you've got additional departments you have to deal with, and do either of you have annual inspections where people come out and inspect your property?
Corey, you go first.
I think they're supposed to, but they normally come out like every other year. Mostly it's like water feedback, meaning like, even though I don't have underground sprinkling, the building used to have underground sprinkling on it. So the little vacuum break, they double check that, even though it hasn't been used in ever. I mean, I've been there 10 years and we've never had it. So probably 15 years. They did come in and tell me one time it wasn't working correctly and it has to get replaced. And I said, well, it's not working correctly because it's not hooked up on the one end. And I had to show him a handful of times. And we actually had two of them, one on either end of the building. He's like, well, the one on the other side of the building's working, right? And I'm like, nope, that one's not hooked up either. But whether that was incompetence or chasing a fine or whatever, for the most part, everything on like the annual inspection stuff is fine. Those police chief comes in. I think we've been there 10 years. He's come in probably 3 times. Not the police chief, I'm sorry, the fire inspector. And we had to move some shelves around one time because they were too close to the ceiling. Little piddly things. For whatever reason, didn't have an address number on our building. So we had to do that. Nothing significant.
Right. Okay. So no real issues there. What about you, Tom?
Yeah. They come in, we do our thing, and we're good to go. We don't have any issues. So yeah, you're talking about the backflow preventer, Corey. Is that what you're talking about on the plumbing?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, so same thing. The fire system, backflow, all the other stuff. They come in, they look around. We've been here now for a good period of time. So the shop is pretty much set up the same from that perspective, I guess, as it was when we first got here from even the initial inspection. So we're good.
Yeah. Now I don't know who actually is in charge of hiring that particular person, but they're not an elected official themselves. Or are they? I don't think they are. I mean, I imagine it varies across the country.
I could tell you for where I'm at, I'm sure that they're hired externally because there's probably so many people that have to go out and do that, and do that.
Right.
So, but in a smaller town, it may be the person that gets elected that goes in to do it. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know, I'm trying to remember. I don't even know what it's like in the municipality that we were in before. I don't think they were elected. I don't think so, but I could be wrong. I don't remember. It's been 8 years.
I would imagine usually it's a hired position. Now the elected officials probably have some weight on not specific individual hirings, but how that hiring process is working. Okay. All right. So, I do. I find it interesting because that you moved back into Philly because I'm aware of all the additional expenses. How did your employees take it? You moved to, like I said, the city wage tax, they actually have to pay an extra tax now too.
Well, not necessarily, because we were so close to the city line where we were that most of the people that worked for us lived in Philly anyway.
So they had to pay it
So
anyway.
it didn't matter.
Got it. Got it.
And to be honest with you, when we looked at it, I should say, it was not a decision that was made lightly. We really tried to, make it work, where we were. It just, after a while, it just felt right. And to be honest with you, it's funny, I was just talking to my dad about this this morning. It's one of the best moves that we probably ever made.
Yeah.
So it worked out good. Yeah, there's pluses and minuses to everything. And, sometimes you can't always equate it all to just dollars and cents. Sometimes you got to follow your gut. And listen, that's why we're all in the positions we're in, is sometimes you just got to take that leap of faith and do what you got to do. And Corey, I think you're right. I think approach has a lot to do with how these things go. I think they're, I get what you're saying. Believe me, you and I are probably kindred, we're kindred spirits here. We're probably
and I wonder if there's a personality profile that could be made as far as shop owners go.
But
right? It's pretty common. This is how we are.
I don't want to say, aggressive isn't the right word, but we know what we want. You know what I mean? We know what we want, and we know how we want it to be. Yeah. Sometimes to a fault, of course. I'll be the first one to admit, but yeah, approach, I think, does have a lot to do with it. And Corey, it's funny because your dad started your business, my dad, the same, and we're a lot alike in most ways, but there are some things that we handle things a little different on. And so I understand why your original thought was, hey, maybe I just got to go do this, myself, come at it a little different direction. And you ended up with the same problem, but in the end, you prevailed because you're
figured it out.
Yeah. So, I think that, if there's I'm not really one to give advice because I haven't really had the problems that Corey, you had, or Greg had, or has. But if you're going to do these things, your approach probably should, you probably want to take a deep breath and really think about how you're going to lay out your plans and what you want to do, and be willing to listen to some pushback and maybe try to work with that.
Yeah.
Sometimes
if you're
left with no, sometimes like Greg doesn't have a lot to work with, Greg doesn't have a lot to work with there. So
I used to be in the historic district, and one of the things that I noticed was kind of to what you were saying, Corey, was if I gave them props on the fact that we had a historic district, hooray, right? We were excited about this. And so when the one time I actually had a roofing contractor come out to make some changes, and it took him 90 days to get the approval process. And that was actually pretty fast, but the way that they worked it was kind of interesting. The historic building committee met the week after the council met. So you had to, it was always a 2-month process at the very least. You had to first get it approved by the historic board, and then you had to go from there. But when I saw how frustrated the roofer was it was a 3-day project. I realized that okay, I think what we need to do is, so the next time I needed to make a change, I presented them, Tom, to your point, it was like a 30 plus double-sided full color packet on why this was going to be advantageous for the historic society, for the historic district, right? And I don't know if anyone from that historic district is listening. You know my name, you know me. If you actually read a third of those pages, I'll buy you lunch. Let me know. Come on. There's no way that any of them read it. They just appreciated that I gave them respect, that I went to this trouble to create it. So back to, you plan it out, map it out. And if you can't do that yourself, hire someone to do it, because that pays in honey. And that's what that really comes down to.
Yeah. And I think, Brad, you're making a good point. And if you think about it, you're talking about a gentleman who was a roofer. We own shops. We're very, like Greg said, he wakes up every morning, puts his feet on the ground and wants to get to work. We don't kind of operate in that world. So when we have to enter it, it's foreign territory for us. So we, I think a little preparation, right, goes a long way. And if you adjust your way of thinking, things could go not perfect, but you might have an easier time. And what your example there, you learn from your initial
right.
dealings, and you gave them what they wanted to see. It wasn't that anything you wanted to do was wrong or whatever, but you gave them what they wanted to see, and it made sense to them because you were kind of speaking in their language. So yeah. I think that's something that we just want to get it done, right, Corey? I mean, like when we're doing something out here or whatever, we just, let's go. We want to do. Sometimes you got to slow down, do the prep work, and
I have the idea. Why is it not done this afternoon? I don't understand.
Yeah, right.
The idea was to happen this morning over breakfast. Why is it not done? It's 5:00 already. Yeah. So, Corey, did I get this right? You wanted to expand, and it took you a little bit of time to get that approved, right?
So from the time we had kind of agreed on the plan to the time we moved in was about 2 years. It was supposed to have been done basically moving in. Oh, let me get my times. It was like right at the very beginning of COVID. So I think we're supposed to have been moving in like January 1st of 2020.
No, moving in, it was, you're expanding the existing property.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we took our office and put it in a trailer in the back parking lot, and then expanded the office side of things so that we could go from one advisor to two, and then stock some extra space and added a break room.
Okay.
And then on the other side of the building, we added 3 more bays.
Okay.
So, the 3 bays part was done quite quickly. But yeah,
the approval process took 2 years, but then the building
the whole process took 2 years. We're supposed to have been moving in January, the first part of January that year. And that was they broke ground like January 2nd. So, and then we ended up being completely moved in by April 1st.
Okay.
So it just took all of that time for prep, for approvals, for permits, for, everything had to be inspected like 10 different times. I mean, it was crazy, but like once the ball got rolling, it went very, very quickly. But just getting the township to say, yes, you can do this stuff. Because they changed setbacks. For when my dad built the building, they wanted 45 feet around 3 of the sides and 60 on what would be the front of the building. Well, then for whatever reason, over that period of time between him building and me wanting to do the addition, they changed it to 12 feet setbacks on 3 sides, and then the front stayed the same. So I basically utilized every square foot on the lot that I could have. Like, I can't make that building physically any larger without going up.
That'd be interesting.
Which is kind of unrealistic for a repair facility.
Well, that's kind of where I was going with that. That'd be very interesting.
I actually saw a dealership. It was out on it was York Road. It was in the city. It was on York Road, and I don't know. It was when we were looking for buildings. It had been closed down. It had been owned by a bunch of, after it closed as a dealer, I think a bunch of used car places, and they actually had a parking lot on top of the building. You could actually drive,
parking lot.
You could do that. But I mean, hey, listen, if you could put the parking lot up there, you could, there's not much, a couple walls and a roof.
Yeah,
I mean,
I guess if the house took 3 inches of concrete, you could put a lift in, right?
But it was the strangest thing I ever saw. I'd never seen that before. Not on top of a.
No, I want the Carvana elevator to go up to the floor that they're working on.
Yeah,
it can be done. That I'm sure you don't want to do it, Corey, but it could be done.
I have no desire to do that. No.
So what do you think? I wonder if a lot of shop owners, the strategy is, you know what? No one's bothering me right now. I want to lay low. I don't want to ruffle feathers. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to know anything. I don't want to put my name out there as even just asking about who's talking about what. Like, what do you say to that person? Is that a good, is the hide strategy a good strategy?
I mean, I think if you're not trying to grow or expand or something, like being stagnant isn't like a long-term survival method in my mind. So if you have the frame of mind where I don't want to expand out of fear because I don't know what kind of political ramifications there might be, I think that's just like a completely different mindset than I just don't want to expand because I'm very content with where I'm at. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And I think a lot of that depends on where you are. I mean, like what Greg's dealing with there. I mean, that's just, can you imagine if you wanted to, you do something, throw another couple bays on, or
Well, no, that's actually how.
Is that what he's trying? Is that what he's trying to do? Okay, I thought he was just.
It was
I was just
several years
away.
ago. He actually did the research and looked at the Army of Corps of Engineers maps and whatnot, and determined that his 18 acres, is that what he said?
Yeah.
It was huge. I find it hard to believe that on 18 acres you can't find a spot for a 5,000 square foot pole barn or even a 15,000 square foot pole barn. I would think that somewhere that you would be able to shift things around, or you could even make beautification on the and grow certain thorn bushes down there for the wetlands and for the birds. But so that, I think that actually, like, he was, it kind of, to your point, Corey, he realized that he couldn't stay stagnant. He needed to actually grow. He had the space, he did the research, but he was still shut down because of the political climate in that area.
That's terrible. It's nuts. And the thing is it's to the whatever township, so whatever the municipality is there, it's to their own detriment. Because the more, for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is, he's got a bigger building, he's going to pay more taxes. It's going to be, if he can grow his business, the sales tax, the gross profits revenue tax, all that,
right.
All that stuff, it's almost, in his case, they're shooting themselves in the foot. You know what I mean? So,
right. Yep.
Financially. And I guess what message does that send to other people that want to do the same thing?
And the message that sends is go to Florida. Leave the state, go to a different state. I'm sorry, not specifically Florida, but maybe Florida. I don't know. There's a shop not too far from me, and they're right on the corner. The building isn't but more than 15 feet from the corner of the road. It's an older building. It's been there for decades upon decades upon decades, and it's a rather busy intersection, to the point where, depending on the time of day, I will go multiple miles around to avoid waiting at that intersection. There's sometimes in the morning because there's a school not too far from there. You might be 40 cars deep at the stop sign, at the four-way stop sign. And so there's not a lot of room for them to pull into their bays and back out of their bays before they are in traffic onto that road. And I was talking to him, and he said, and by the way, they work on Sundays. They have multiple mechanics there every single day. That shop is busy as to the tilt 7 days a week. And they, I was chatting with the owner, and he was saying, there's no way. I know the people in the government here. I don't even want to mess. I don't even, no, thank you. I'd rather not grow because it's too much hassle. And that's such a shame. So I wonder if we could dial the clock back 10 years or even 5 years for Greg. And if he would have gotten involved, if he would have tried to create local groups, if he would have tried to have him or his daughter or just kind of posting on social media, trying to find people who actually were going to be pro-business 2 years in advance of him thinking about actually growing the shop. So what I'm really saying is, even if you're not currently thinking about growing, think about getting involved so that if you change your mind in 2 years, you don't get slammed, you don't get stopped. So that's I don't know. That's just kind of my thinking. It's a shame for that local shop because they could be, interestingly enough, they could redesign their building so that they don't have to pull in and out of bays right on the street. He's got the land behind him. Similar situation to Greg in that regard, right? He didn't cut down any trees or nothing, but anyway, but you could actually set it up so that you're pulling off the other road as opposed to the most busy one. But whatever. Yeah. Sometimes, like you said, they kind of cut their nose off to spite their face, or whatever that expression is.
Thinking that far ahead would be great and all, but there's a lot of time investment. Like there's a lot of things that I missed with my kids when we first took over the shop, and to risk sacrificing some of that to deal with what I guess I would consider to be a whole lot of nonsense when it comes to the political side of things. Like, I don't know if the benefit would really outweigh it in my mind. Maybe if you wanted to back somebody or encourage someone else to do it, that might be worthwhile. But for me to actually invest my time in something like that, I have zero interest in something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's kind of where I was going with the groups, but you make a really valid point. And I've thought about this, like even like the state representatives, they're like 4 or 5 months prior to the election, they're out every single night, sometimes more than 4 or 5 months. They're out every single night. And I'm thinking, these guys have 4-year-olds at home. They have 6-year-olds at home. Like, what are they missing? Like, my son's 10. And so, I want to be a part of his football, right? I want to be around. I want to be, that kind of thing. Now, I'm not coaching. I'm not volunteering to do that, just in case someone's listening and thinking they can get me roped in on that. But another thankless job that I'm very thankful that others are doing it. But I don't know. I don't have any of the answers. That's why I'm trying to actually have this podcast. So let's have conversations about it. Let's actually keep the conversation going after this, maybe in the Garage Grit group Facebook forum, or maybe just via email groups. I don't know, but like let's start brainstorming to determine how we can help ourselves and other small businesses like us. That's kind of my thought on that. But you're right, it is time consuming. And so if you could create a group of people and you meet once every quarter, between the group, can you maybe find one person to put in those thankless nights?
That's a good thought.
I don't know the answer to that either.
In West Michigan, we have a little group that we started. It's the West Michigan Shop Owners Group. And there's probably 10 or 12 very active people. We get together once a month for like 2 hours. We try to cap it at 2 hours so it doesn't take up too long. And we actually have, I think, 85 or 90 shops. It's only for shop owners. In West Michigan, but like I said, we probably have 10 or 12 active members, and that wouldn't be a bad idea to see if one of them would be interested in doing something like that. Know someone that might,
or even if one of them knows somebody, right? To start the process, because it's if we keep putting our head in the sand, the lack of common sense is only going to get worse.
Well, Brad, that's how we got here, I think. I think everybody, and I don't think it was done out of any kind of malice. I think that people just figured, they're going to help. That's what they're there for. They're helping. They're going to keep the community safe. They're going to do this, they're going to do that. And I think everybody just kind of got to the point where you were talking about an off-year election and things like that. Local elections matter. and I think sometimes to get too far away from this, but to speak to your point, I think that local elections might matter more than even the big ones.
Go stronger. Not might. They do. They affect our day-to-days more. Try to put a fence in without, I did not have to appeal to President Trump for the fence that we replaced recently. Right. I mean,
it's the truth. It's the truth.
And I think I think just a lot of people got complacent and just kind of, just assumed that was just going to roll on its own and it was always going to be good. And, places like what Greg is dealing with, obviously there's a major issue, without knowing the whole story. You can't put a fine point on it, but there's obviously an issue somewhere. That's crazy.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't know about New York, but in Pennsylvania, or at least where I'm at, there is a large push for local municipalities buying up land for conservation. Now, I flinch at the idea of government owning property to begin with. Like, that's not my thing. But I wonder if Greg would have approached it, and we're playing Monday morning quarterbacks. That's not very fair. But I wonder if Greg would, if someone in his situation would approach it, knowing that might be the case. I will donate 3 acres or 5 acres of my land to the municipality for conservation. I will set up a park for people just to walk through it. I'll maintain the trail once a year. Like, I don't know. I just, kind of like the way you were plowing neighbors' driveways, right? I mean, you could keep it that simple. I wonder if that honey would have made it a little bit different.
Maybe it's not too late for that. I mean, that's a good idea.
Yeah. I and maybe that's I'm sure the three of us are all still thinking about Greg's story. I know I am. It's resonating in my mind. So maybe that's something we should reach out and, float by him and see if he, be willing to entertain that. The problem is
because he's probably pretty upset about
exactly.
Like, now I'm going to give land to.
So I'm going to give them right. It's right. It may be too late. It may be too late. But there's an example to what Corey, when you got that sign, appeal to their, appeal to the better angels, if you will. You know what I mean? Let's find a way to make this work. And that, should you have to do that? Should you not have to do that? That's I guess it depends what you're talking about, but, that kind of planning or that kind of, flexibility could go a long way depending on, depending on what you're trying to do. It could also be a deal breaker too. In his case, maybe it's not because he's got so much, land that he can, he could do that. Whereas, one of us, Corey or myself, that's
right.
Work. We don't have it, we just don't. But he might be able to. That's it's a great idea, Fred.
Yeah, and I don't know if that sounds like a bribe or not, but if you're giving it to the township or the municipality, I can't imagine it would be. But I'm not a proponent of for those listening in, I'm not a proponent for you just saying, "Hey, I'll help you get reelected. Here's $50,000 for your campaign." Or something like that either. That's not a...
No, but I think what you were saying was fair. This is a, here's my olive branch to try to help the community. You're not helping one particular
community,
person.
not that particular candidate. That's right.
I'm absolutely not talking about that. What I'm talking about is, the example you gave was great because it's, hey, listen, I'll put in a playground or for the kids or, what it's, or I'll give you the land and you can put whatever, whatever it looks like, that at least, in this particular case, and I hate to do this because we are Monday morning quarterback in this, but it shows that there's understanding and some compassion. Should you have to do it? Probably not. It's his land and,
right.
No, but
right.
We live where we live.
So let's talk about zoning real quick, and then we'll probably start to tie this up. I've talked to, so in getting this episode together, I talked to a handful of different shops in a bunch of different situations. And I've talked to a couple of shops whose attitude was, I like that they don't allow any more repair shops in my area. because if they did, then there might be 4 more in my area, and then that would drive the price down. And the capitalist side of me is like, competition is good. It elevates everyone. It makes us work harder, right? But it was an interesting point that he had. He said, I'm already established, so I kind of like that rule that's in place that says no more. What say you guys to that? Speak openly. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm probably a bad example because of where I am. There's auto shops everywhere, so you couldn't put anything else, in or out where I am. And I've always welcomed competition myself, so I don't really have a problem with, I don't really have a problem with competition. It's an interesting, that's an interesting take on it. I never really thought about it that way before, but that's probably just because of where I've always done business has always been so saturated with competition, and when I say competition, we have, of course, we're all competing for business, but I try to take a little bit more of a collaborative role when it comes to that. And, if there's shops around me that need help, or whatever, we try to look at it
Corey
as
already talked about the West Michigan group, right? They're all helping each other. So,
exactly.
So Corey, what is your thoughts on that? What would you say to that shop owner who says, that's a great rule, I'm locked in, and I
understand it else for sure. But, I enjoy competition, whether it's friendly competition or athletic competition or business competition. Like Tom, within a mile and a half of my shop, we probably have 200 bays of auto repair. So, there are a ton of shops on the road that my business is on. So, people have 20 choices. And they regularly drive by all of them to get to us, because depending on which way you're coming from, we're probably last in line.
Okay. All right. So I'm sorry. I'm gonna talk about a church experience real quick. I was told about a church. This was back in my 20s, and I was told about a church that it was worth checking out. It was kind of far away, and I liked it. So I started to go, and then I said, I want to count how many churches I pass to get to this particular church. And I 26. I counted. I passed 20 on that, not like off the road, on that road that I drove to get there, 26 churches. And then I had the thought, that's interesting. I wonder. And so on the way home, I did. I counted the number of bars. It was also 26 bars on the same road. So I just found that to be really interesting. But no, I like competition. I think it does. I think it kind of makes you, it's like you said, makes you kind of step up a little bit potentially. So I'm not a fan of that kind of government, but zoning changes necessarily. But that's really what we're talking about, right? Is zoning changes. I came across, there's a bunch of shops that I come across that have, they have they're in like a long row of almost like a storage type environment building, right? But they just have multiple bays. And there's 4 different repair shops, all lined up next to each other. If you get a quote, you walk 20 feet to get the next quote. I wonder how often that happens, right? But it is what it is with zoning. Are you, what would you say to a shop that's on a main, are you either of you on a main strip, on a main road, on a main?
We're on a private drive off of the main road. So we don't have any actual roads.
All right. So you're kind of in an industrial park, which is why you've got so many in your area. That entire area has been zoned probably industrial or that type of a thing, right? Yeah. What about you, Tom? Are you on?
We're actually at an intersection of two pretty heavily traveled roads. Yeah.
Because I feel like the politicians, the government's perception of auto repair shops is a bunch of broken down vehicles out front with a bunch of tires and, everywhere, and garbage everywhere and oil spills everywhere. And what they don't realize is how, pay attention to the cars. The cars have been so yuppified is probably the wrong word. Gentrified is probably a nicer way to say it. But the cars are so elegant in their nature. The consumer kind of wants that concierge, higher level treatment as opposed to going to a rundown shop. And so the market has actually solved that eyesore issue in many ways.
Yeah, no, that's true. And we're very diligent about making sure our appearance is a high level. Whether it's the paint, the way the building looks, or, we don't leave broken down cars out in the front. We have a fenced in lot behind us. All the cars come off out of the front every morning, every night, and go into the back. That's both for aesthetics, but also for security, obviously. So we're very conscious about what our appearance is, from, our curb appeal, if you will. And I think that, I think and we've all driven by shops that have some appearance issues, and you could see where that kind of stereotype kind of comes from, but we work very hard, as I'm sure Corey does. I could just tell by talking to him that we work very hard at making
sure. And
the
bright colored shirt probably too, right?
I like
the bright colored shirt says a lot too.
Like but I think, and probably anybody you get that's going to come on your podcast are going to be people that take this very seriously, don't mind competition, and want to be the best, and want to make sure that they portray their business. Corey would probably agree with me. This is it's an extension of me. So I wanted to, look like this is a professional organization with professional people working in it, behaving professionally. That's 3 times I got to put it. But, because I think that's what the public wants. And to be honest with you, since we're talking about, municipalities, I think that's what they want too. I think they want to see, places that look professional and are clean and safe and well lit and yada, yada, yada. And that, that helps represent the community. When we moved in here, we had a lot of work to do to bring this place up to our standards. And, we did it with besides doing it for our own business, we wanted to try to, bring it up for the community so that people that live around here, when they drive by, could see it and, say, hey, that place looks pretty good. I had a customer who, with the first time she came here, she was sitting at a light and had to make a left and then turn right into the parking lot. And she said, Tom, when I was coming down the street and I got to the light and I knew I had to make the left and I looked over and I saw your shop, it just brought a big smile to my face because it just looks so beautiful. And, I was so happy to be coming to see you. Okay. I didn't pay her. And when she said it, that's one of those moments where, when she said that to me, it touched me because it really made me feel good. And it that one statement made all the months of, rehabilitation worth it. Because if she feels that way, I'm sure there's other people that may never even come into this place that will look at it and say, wow, look at that. That's a beautiful place. And that's worth it to me. To me, that's worth it.
In the West Michigan group, do you have any shop owners that need to be kind of poked and prodded to say, clean your appearance up?
So we normally will cycle through shops, and we like the topic is pick 3 things that you need help with, and as a group we will have some back and forth. So pretty much universally, we started in my shop, and for me, sounds like a lot like Tom. It's cleanliness, bright. Our customer waiting room is not very large, but we have clients say regularly that it resembles more like a doctor's office. It doesn't. Nice. And actually, one of them this morning, they said it's better than a doctor's office because doctor's offices now are very bill collecting and they look more cubicle like. And, we have solid surface countertops. Literally the exact same ones I have in my kitchen in there. And,
okay.
The wood flooring on the walls. So it kind of looks not like an auto repair shop. So when, the shop owners came and saw mine, they're like, oh, that looks really nice. And I'm like, and it's basically the same cost as paint. It's just a little bit of labor.
Okay.
And I don't have that skill set anyway. So I hired a professional to come and do it. And, so now it's, as we go around from place to place, people do try to they spend extra time cleaning, try to impress the other shop owners and stuff like that. But it pays for itself tenfold when somebody can walk in, particularly, a mom of two, because like that's almost 90% of our clients.
Yeah.
And not leave with dirt on their shoes or on their hands, and actually think enough to walk in and like wipe their feet off because they don't want to get the inside of the waiting room dirty.
Yeah. Nice.
Corey,
nice. I like that.
Your point is great. And that actually what you were saying, this, our waiting room is the same. And when it's the same kind of idea where it's not an automotive waiting room. We don't have, and that's a great point, Corey. And I know this is a little off topic, but if somebody has to redo a waiting room, don't start hanging banners and doing all that. Make it look like a living room, like somewhere inviting. And you know what? Look, Corey, you're 100% right. It doesn't cost that much more, if at all, to make it look like that. People, when they come in to when they're dropping their cars off, especially like that mom of two you're talking about, she has an expectation of, walking into a clean facility, walking into a professional place. It's so easy to do that in your waiting room, and the waiting room doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be, a grandiose, decor or anything like that. It just needs to be clean, well lit, and not look like an automotive repair shop. You don't want tires stacked up.
A traditional automotive repair shop.
Traditional, right? You don't want to have tires stacked up in a corner with the thing on it or a banner or some kind of, whatever.
Right.
Keep it simple.
With floors that haven't been cleaned since,
Exactly.
1974.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great point, Corey. That was a great point.
So I wonder if somebody could brag, this is what the West Michigan Auto Repair Group does, and this is how it's helped my shop. And this is why you need to be willing to let me make the changes that I want to make here in this municipality to my shop. Like, I wonder if it's kind of like something you got to put as bragging rights. Because I'm a part of this group, I wonder if do you kind of see where I'm going? I wonder if that's part of the honey.
Is what you're talking about. As like a positive for if you're trying to do an improvement, hey, we're a part of this group and this is the standard that they have. Here's examples of what they've done in the past to try to get that approvals, those approvals expedited.
Yeah.
If nothing else, it shows mindset. But I mean, it's, it shows that you get it and that you understand what they're looking for as a finished product, if you will. What the particulars are of specifically what you're trying to do. That's
at the top. I suggested that everybody goes and gets a copy of their the ballot that they're going to be voting on this coming election, and then just do a Google search for the name and the position that they are running for. And I don't know how many people do. I've been doing this for years, and there are times when I have to admit I did not know that was an elected position. I had to go look it up. I had to go find out what that person actually was supposed to do, what their roles are, right? And so there are some like coroner, for example. Like they're just in Pennsylvania, you vote for your coroner. I don't know that I care. I'm dead, but whatever. But I find that, I don't know, I find that interesting. So what did you think about that idea? Do you think it's a decent, worthy advice to just get the ballot, get the names, spend 15 minutes, 3 minutes on each one, Google search, each name, each position.
It definitely can't hurt.
What do you think?
I mean, I can't count how many times I voted, and I know that I've never done that. If it's a name that I recognize and I like that person, I'll vote for them.
But what if it's a name that you don't recognize?
I probably just vote for whoever the incumbent would be, right or wrong. Or sometimes I'll vote for the person that I know is
Corey, I'm
the
going to push you a little bit. I'm going to encourage you. Can you?
I was going to say sometimes.
Say that again.
We had the last one. There was a trustee for Georgetown Township who was 18 years old and had just graduated high school, and everybody else was in their 40s and 50s. And I'm like, that's awesome. He didn't win, but I know for sure he got my vote. I didn't know the kid's name or anything like that. I had literally learned about him as I was walking into to vote from other people talking about it. And I'm like, yep,
Okay.
I don't know who he is, but I'll vote for an 18-year-old.
Okay. I like that. That reminds me of in Pennsylvania, we're voting for Supreme Court justices for the state of Pennsylvania. And the term is a 10-year term. And I'm looking at the average age of the three people who are asking for another 10-year term. And I'm thinking, maybe there could be someone younger. Maybe, like, regardless of politics aside, like, even if you disagree with everything that they have to say, maybe there's someone younger. And they don't need to be 18, but maybe not, 85 at the end of their term.
I mean, I would say almost if you're over 60, you shouldn't be allowed to run.
Yeah, I'm not going to put that much restriction on it because I had an experience with playing soccer.
Okay.
You ready for this? I had experience playing soccer, and that's when I realized that all of our genetics are a little bit different. So there was a guy on our team who was 10 years my senior. He was actually over 50 at the time, and he's playing in an open league. It was an aggressive competitive league, right? So in this league over the 10-year period or 15-year period that I was there, I got 4 concussions. So, I mean, it was an aggressive league, and he didn't have pains in his ankles or his knees. And he probably ate better than I did. He probably exercised better than I did, but he probably had different genetics than I did. And so my point is, there are some 65-year-olds who are extremely on top of things.
That's fair.
And so if they're going to do a 2-year term, let's have them, because their genetics actually, are just different than others. But yeah, like, what was the issue that was floated on the national level? At a certain age, you should do a cognitive type test.
Yeah,
that's really what you're saying. It's not that it has to be an exact age. Is how, let's at least ask the question. Let's at least be allowed to ask the question without being offensive. You may ask that question of me when I am in my 60s, which isn't terribly long for me, actually. Which is, I was doing the math on that. I was like, oh, okay,
getting close. I
got stuff to do. So Corey, would you be willing to try that this year? Would you be willing to try doing the Google search on each of the names and then mid-November reach back out to me and let me know
a ballot or votes next month? So yeah, I'll have to swing by and grab a ballot, find out who's all on it. That's a great idea. Well, and you can, like, here, it's as simple as a Google search. My county in Pennsylvania actually serves up the ballot for every single municipality on a ridiculously long PDF file. So you download the 300-page PDF file, you do a search for your particular township, and there it is, right? There are the people that are running on both Republican and Democrat side and Libertarian side. So how about you, Tom? Are you up for that? I don't know if you've done that before. Have you Google searched other people before you?
I have. And I have not, I'll be honest with you, Brad, I haven't done it this year, and I need to do it. And I am much like Corey, I definitely haven't done it every year. What I would do is, if I didn't know who I was voting for, I would not vote in that particular section of the ballot, because I didn't think it was fair for me to pick somebody that I didn't know anything about. So that was kind of that was my strategy for that. And of course, while I'm standing there and I get all the way down and there's one section, somebody running for something that I don't know who the two people are, I'm like, I should have looked this up, but I can't put a vote in if I don't know who I'm voting for. So
I understand. So are you up for this challenge as well? You'll do that Google search for each of the, all right, that's great. So you'll let me know how hard that was, or difficult that was as well.
Absolutely.
All right, good. I think that's the way to go. I think it's, I don't think it's going to be a huge time taker, stealer from you. And I mean, it's actually all at your fingertips on your phone if you really wanted to. You don't have to. So it's a great world that we live in. Is there anything else that you would want to say to somebody who's a shop owner who is trying to think about either improving or maybe just voting, or I don't know, anything else that we didn't cover on this topic that we'd be remiss not to bring up?
I would say, if you're looking at doing what you originally intended this to be, which was, I want to expand I want to expand a building or stuff like that, Just remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You know, you're going to hit obstacles along the way, and you have to be prepared for that. Try to do some research, use Corey's, advice, and, come at it from the right angle and see where it takes you. You may or may not, may not prevail, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. So as far as voting, there's no excuse for anybody to not vote every election day. Especially now with, early voting and, and things like that. There's, there's no reason not to vote. It always depresses me when I see the percentages of people, and particularly in these years when it's not a big to do like a presidential election. You see, voter turnout 25-30%. It's like, come on, you got to, listen. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your politics are. When people get engaged, things will figure themselves out. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of people that look at it as more of a pain in the neck than an actual civic responsibility. And I think it's our, we live in this great country. I think it's our job to maintain it. And the only way to do that is to participate in the elections and and do your part.
From the local up, all the way through. So I don't know if this sounds like I'm bragging or if it sounds like I'm admitting, I in the last 30 plus years of voting, I've missed 2 primaries.
That's pretty good.
I feel like that's decent. And so I hear the whole point about the early voting, mail-in ballots, and I'm thinking, like, I can't think of anything that would actually stop me from getting to my polling place on election day. I can't come up with anything. If flooding, I get a boat, get a raft. I mean, I don't know. All right. So there was a story that I forgot to mention, and it's kind of out of place, but it was interesting. I know of a guy in Jersey, and I'm hoping to have him on in the future. He knew that he needed to move. He couldn't stay where he's at, and he went to 3 different municipalities before he found one that was willing to take on a repair shop. It goes back to that idea that it's going to be run down, I guess. I don't know, but it took a long time for him just to find somebody who was willing to take his business. That's just mind blowing to me. But, and then the other thing that we didn't talk about, and I think the West Michigan, idea, the West Michigan Auto Association or group that you have, Corey, could play into this. I know, a lot of shop owners don't necessarily live where they work, so they can't vote on the municipality that is governing their shop. They can vote where they're governing their house. And so, what do you do in that situation? And I think creating a group of shop owners for advocacy or just to help each other out is a valid answer to that. Like, go beyond just that municipality. Because we're not talking, we're not necessarily talking like a large city necessarily. We're talking about small areas. And so, you might actually pull from multiple municipalities, but you could potentially still work together. I don't know. What do you guys think of that idea? Is that applicable? Is there something else that I'm missing as far as how to address that?
I would say that that's a fair assumption. I do live in the town that my business is in, but I don't like using the term common sense because I don't think that that's even actually a thing. But you
don't think it's a thing, or you don't think it's a prevalent thing?
I don't think that common sense actually exists the way that we all use it as like a common definition. So going into a situation, assuming common sense, just using this topic for an example, when I walk into something, Greg, for example, he's going in, he's like, I want to cut down these trees. So he just did it as it made sense.
Yeah.
And somebody else says, nope, that's not only a felony, it's a criminal felony. And, you could lose your freedom over doing something that makes sense. So that's maybe not the best definition, but, I would never want to vote against something that provides the lifestyle for my family or provides the support for my family.
Sure.
So if I didn't live here and I lived whatever in one township over and there was, hey, we're going to vote on something that could potentially affect auto repair facilities in this town, logic would have it that I would vote in favor of that. Having as many repair facilities as what you want to. I mean, limiting that kind of a business doesn't make sense because it's so necessary.
Yeah, it does. It is very necessary. We all have cars, almost every single one of us, right? So like in multiple cars. So it is necessary. And we do want it to be a nicer presentation, and we want to feel good when we walk in. And so that's, to me, that's also common sense in some ways, right? It's just, it's just practical. That's what when I'm thinking of common sense, that's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of this, like the dead tree thing is a good example. Like that's a no-brainer. Like that just is obvious. So why would they actually make it a felony? That's the part that actually is anti-common sense to me.
I had a mentor of mine tell me that there's no such thing as common sense. There's only sense. So like stop making that assumption. So
I see what you're saying.
I've literally tried to take that verbiage just out of my life. Like I don't even use the term.
Okay. I understand that. Okay. Because it's not common. So how do we bring more sense to the platform? Is there any other ideas for someone that does not live in their same district as their shop? Any other things that they could be doing that could potentially help, other than creating a coalition of other shops?
I don't know. Would it be unrealistic to have some of these people like invite them in? Like what don't you like about auto repair shops? Because I mean, if you're talking about the reputation that we had in the 70s and 80s and maybe even early 90s, where we were shady, we were not necessarily the most ethical. Every one of us was dirty. There was grease and grime everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
so host a cocktail hour.
Yeah.
And invite the local
like
officials.
Have a chamber of commerce at your place. I mean, there's going to be some of them people there.
That's a good idea. Yep. Chamber of Commerce is a great idea. Yep. All right. Well, good. So we're trying to cover the last things that we missed or haven't yet talked about. So, Tom, you shared, I shared. Corey, do you have any other things that we should have been talking about before we wrap up and call this a wrap?
I think so. I think you did a really good job kind of covering everything.
Okay.
I'm really kind of bummed that Greg had to leave because I don't think I'm going to stop thinking about that till I find out what happens.
I think everyone that's listening to that is going to be asking that question, as am I. So I will be also reaching out to, so it's a father-daughter shop. So I'll be reaching out to Gina shortly after this just to see if there's been an update. Maybe he's back from court already. I don't know. Or God forbid, maybe he's in handcuffs. I don't know. I don't know how it works. So we're gonna find out, and with Greg's permission, maybe we'll post it on the private Facebook group of the Garage Grit Podcast. Make sure that you're following us there, and maybe I'll be able to have a
Brad,
Greg.
Ask,
yeah,
if you can post it on that. Ask if we can share it on our own places, because there's other groups that have across the whole country that would probably love to hear about this and love to help.
Okay. All right. I like that. I will offer that to them. But yeah, I could change the settings to make it, or I could just publish it on the AA Shop marketing page to make it more available. But let me first get Greg's permission before I do that. But that's a good idea. And I think you're right. I think that's part of this too, is pay attention to what's going on locally, get involved, do the Google search of each of the names, get the ballot. Step number 1. Step number 2, look up the name and the position of each person. Do that Google search together. That's how I do it. I actually do the name of the person and the position all in one Google search for each time. And it's very rare. There are times that I've actually done that and I can't find enough information. And so I don't vote for that person. Like I'm voting for the people that I can find information on because I don't want to vote blind. It's not that I've never voted blind, but now it's so easy to get this information. This is the way forward. Let's do this. And let's make sure that we're voting for people that have sense, that are pro-business shop, pro-business or pro-small business and pro-auto repair shops. who aren't going to be coming after you as some of the stories that we're hearing from New York, the state of New York. So make sure that you're liking and subscribing to us on Spotify or YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us along for more. We're dropping so many more episodes now than we were. We are doing this panel once a month, but in addition to that, we're doing these origin and impact stories where we're having these one-on-one conversations. And so maybe Greg will be able to come back for something like that, so we get more information on that. I'll have to ask to see his availability. It might need to wait till it's further along in the process. I don't know. But check those episodes out. We're dropping those almost twice a week. So pay attention, get involved, jump out to the Facebook page, click like, and thank you for listening to another episode. Stay tuned for the next one. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.